Today on Sugar Spun Run, I'm showing you how to make baklava. Hey Sugar Spun Bakers, Sam here, and today I am so excited to be sharing another carefully researched, well-tested, and perfected recipe. This baklava is the perfect balance of syrupy and flaky, and I think you are going to absolutely love it. It might seem complicated, but don't be intimidated. I'm going to walk you through all of the steps, and yours is going to turn out just like the picture. Now, to get started, you are going to need 3/4 pounds of finely chopped nuts. I usually chop the nuts myself, either using a knife, which can be a little bit time consuming, or I toss them in the food processor for 8 1-second pulses. I just want to make sure you can see just what the consistency should look like. They should be really fine and a little bit sandy. Today I'm using walnuts, but you could instead use pecans or pistachios. Now we're going to be adding 1/4 cup of sugar in with our nuts. I'm using light brown sugar, but granulated will work as well. We'll also be adding 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon and just a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Make sure you stir everything together really well. This is going to be that nutty, slightly spiced filling for our baklava. So set that aside, and now we're going to need to melt some butter. I usually find that I need between 2 and 3 sticks of unsalted butter whenever I'm making baklava. I have 2.5 sticks melted here. You'll also need a 16-ounce package of phyllo dough. You want to make sure this is thawed according to the instructions on the package, and we'll lay this out on a clean workspace. Now, phyllo dough dries out very quickly, and we need this to stay pliable and workable, so we want to keep it moist. To do this, I take a kitchen towel that's clean, run it under cold water, wring it out really well, and then I'll just lay it over the phyllo while I work. Make sure you replace the towel after you remove each sheet. Now we'll be making our baklava in a 13x9 baking pan. You want to make sure this is pretty deep, and I don't like to use a glass dish because the edges are usually rounded and it can make it a little bit tricky for placing the phyllo sheets. Now grab your pastry brush and use your melted butter to generously brush the sides and bottom of this pan. So place your first sheet of phyllo on the bottom of your buttered baking dish. Phyllo dough is very, very delicate, so whenever I'm transferring it, I like to just carefully kind of roll it and then line up my corners and then gently unroll it into the pan. And you're going to want to trim it. I just use a sharp paring knife to just trim that edge. It's a little bit annoying that this doesn't fit exactly into our pan, but we'll make it work. Now you need a total of 10 buttered phyllo sheets on the bottom of the pan, so generously brush this sheet with butter. And then we'll add 9 more sheets, generously buttering each one before adding the next. If your phyllo tears, as mine always seems to do because I get a little bit overexcited, you can take small pieces of that scrap phyllo and use it to patch those tears. Or you can just leave them, whichever you prefer is fine. Now baklava isn't really difficult to make, but it is time consuming. I'm going to speed up this process so you don't have to spend an hour watching me do it on video, but just have a little patience with yourself because it does take some time. So now we're going to scatter about 1/4 of this nut mixture that we have evenly over the top of that buttered phyllo. If you want to measure it, I find this is usually about 3/4 cup. Now the total count of sheets and nut mixture that you're going to need is 10 layers on the bottom, a layer of nuts, 5 layers, a layer of nuts, another 5 layers, a layer of nuts, another 5 layers, a layer of nuts, and then 10 layers on top. It can be really easy to lose count, so what I like to do is just save the scrap from each sheet that I've trimmed off and set it aside. That way I can refer to that to make sure I've used enough sheets. Now we'll top this nut mixture with another 5 layers of buttered phyllo. Make sure to generously butter each sheet as you go and trim it. Now when you go to do that first layer over the nuts, your phyllo is going to want to wiggle all around. So sometimes I'll use my fingers to just gently hold it down, or I'll just dab the butter on. Just be a little bit careful. Make sure you keep the phyllo that you're not using covered with that damp towel, otherwise it will dry out. Now add another layer of that nut mixture. And we're going to do another 5 sheets of buttered trimmed phyllo. The first time I ever tried baklava was actually when I was in Egypt. That was a pretty cool experience, but to be honest, I didn't really like it the first time I tried it. That's kind of embarrassing because, believe it or not, I'm actually pretty Greek. I have cousins over in Greece, and my great-grandfather was a Greek immigrant many years ago, so I felt like I should have enjoyed it a little more than I did. I've definitely come around, and I did so much research when I was testing this recipe because I wanted to do true justice to it. I've gotten a lot of requests, and a reader named Carol had actually sent me her recipe years ago that I used as the basis while I was developing this one. Once those are buttered, you'll want to scatter more of that nut mixture over top. Then we'll repeat with 5 more well-buttered sheets of phyllo. Now we'll use the remainder of our nut mixture. And we'll top this with 10 well-buttered sheets of phyllo. Typically, a box of phyllo has more sheets than you actually need. This is great in case you accidentally tear a couple, like I do, like just to the point where they're not usable. But you can either put any additional ones on top for your last layer, or you can just leave them off. Either is fine. Make sure you generously butter that top layer too. Now, once your baklava is prepped, I like to pop this in the freezer for about 20 minutes before cutting it. This is going to help keep my lines nice and clean. While this is chilling, you can preheat your oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. So after 20 minutes in the freezer, we're gonna go ahead and cut this. Grab a sharp knife, and traditionally baklava is cut on an angle, so that's what we're going to do, starting in one corner. I'm honestly really nervous about this. I always screw up my diamonds. And make sure you cut all the way through. So I'm going back over each of these a second time. And you want these to be straight and even lines, and I sometimes struggle with keeping them straight, but I'm just trying my best, okay? Okay, that could have been worse. It could have been better, but it could have been worse. Let's do the other side. And I love these ceramic knives because they're pretty inexpensive, they're pretty, and they're sharp. So I'll go ahead and link to these in the description in case you want to get yourself a set. It's a whole set, and I think it's under $30. Phew, okay, so once we've done our diagonal cuts, now we're just going to cut about 5 straight lines down from the top. And this is why we chill it, because if I had done that little slip right there with unchilled phyllo dough, the whole thing would have been a mess. Before this goes in the oven, we're going to sprinkle it with just a few drops of ice water. This is going to help keep the phyllo from curling. Now take this over to your 325 degree Fahrenheit preheated oven, where it's going to need to bake for between an hour and a half. I usually find that mine takes an hour and 15 minutes, but you're looking for it to be a nice deep golden brown color. So while that's in the oven, we can go ahead and prepare our syrup that we're going to pour over the baklava while it's still warm. You're going to want to grab a small saucepan, and let's head over to the stovetop. Now in your saucepan, you'll want to combine 1 cup of water, 1 cup of granulated sugar, 2 tablespoons of freshly squeezed lemon juice, 1 lemon slice, a cinnamon stick, and just a single whole clove. Stir these together really well, turn your stovetop heat to medium-high, and you'll want to cook this, stirring frequently until it comes to a full boil. Now once everything is boiling, reduce the heat, and we're going to continue to cook for about another 7 to 10 minutes. You just want it to be boiling gently at this point. So after about 7 minutes, we'll remove the pot from the heat. And we're going to add a half cup of honey. And I also like to add a half teaspoon of vanilla extract. This is optional and not necessarily traditional, but I love using it. Now set this aside, and we have it all ready for when our baklava comes out of the oven. Now, as soon as that baklava comes out of the oven, grab your syrup, and we are going to slowly, very slowly and evenly pour that over the top. Go nice and slow. You should hear that nice sizzle while you're doing this. Now the hardest part is you need to let this baklava sit. It needs to sit for at least several hours or preferably overnight. That way it can soak up all of that good syrup. I do have a baklava that I prepared last night for you, so it's had that time to sit. Let's take a look at it. I always like to run my knife or a spatula around the diamonds before removing them, just in case I didn't cut all the way through. Let's take one right from the center. Look at that, it's soaked all the way through with our syrup that we used. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's baklava recipe. If you try it out, I definitely want to hear what you think. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. So good.